Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar to boost your contact center with front-to-back automation. I'm delighted to see a really strong turnout from not only across Europe, but globally. In today's session, we intend to share some of our thoughts around how UiPath can enable end-to-end contact center automation, an overview of the CC transformation roadmap, and we're delighted to have one of our customers, Fiserv, join, and Cheryl Watson will later be walking you through how they identified and delivered the business case for automating their contact center. In form of introductions, my name is Hugh Williams. I am the Global Practice Lead for Contact Centers at UiPath, and I'm together joined with my colleague, Ankit. Ankit?
Hey, I'm Ankit Saraf. I'm a product manager here at UiPath for contact center products.
And Cheryl.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Watson. I'm the EMEA lead for Fiserv.
Thank you, Cheryl. We do have a Q&A on this particular webinar. We do encourage everybody to ask as many questions as possible. We will be responding to all questions following this, and we also have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please do encourage people to ask as many questions as possible. We'll try and get through as many as we can. We're going to talk today about some of the drivers for automation within the contact center. But first of all, I want to focus on the concept of hyper-automation and focus very much on how that impacts on the contact center industry as a whole. As we're aware, RPA has been the foundation layer for driving automation, and specifically in the contact center industry for some time, but more recently, being able to drive a very different outcome. But in this case, RPA is the foundation layer to hyperautomation. There are many other functions within that entire framework that will deliver a very different outcome. And the first one is around AI and AI skills. In particular, the ability to be able to drive and introduce intelligence into workflow to influence, for example, agent behavior. One example of that is to be able to push and present the likelihood of a customer churning during the call and empowering the agent with very different sets and metrics and next steps as a result of that. The second is the concept of machine learning, both introducing the ability to consistently improve and evolve human and the digital workforce. Long-running workflows will enable not only the automation of calls within the contact center, but also, and I'll demonstrate this later, the relationship between front and back office. And a key concept of what we want to talk about today is the automation of front to back is not purely about automating the in-call activity, but what relationship does that have with those long-running workflows deep into the back office? Process mining, and in particular in the contact center, task mining, enables you to really understand what an agent is doing and the activities and tasks, not only on a day-to-day basis, but certainly the relationships that that agent has with other departments, handoffs between different departments. And what task mining and process mining will enable is for you to build significant intelligence as you start to design the automation processes. Native integrations within the contact center allow you to access out-of-the-box connectors to accelerate the build. And of course, the concept and the focus of all of this is speed of build and speed of deployment. And the final point is around advanced analytics, to be able to track not only the activities that a bot performs, but certainly insight, sentiment, and feedback from the customer. And in bringing all of these together, we're able to drive, as a platform, hyper-automation, and specifically in the contact center and customer experience arena. So what are the pain points and challenges that we see today in the contact center industry, and how can automation and intelligent automation drive a different outcome? The first is the need to drive customer experience, loyalty, and personalization. And the challenge, of course, is how do organizations enable personalization when all of the data sets are fragmented across multiple sources? When, of course, in the first few seconds of the call, how does a contact center agent understand not only who the customer is, but where are they in their journey? What is the likely outcome of the call? The opportunity here is to use attended automation to push context immediately to the agent, so they can understand things like where the customer is in their journey and drive much more personalized and engaging experiences in the first few seconds of that contact. And of course, in most cases, prior to that customer even interacting with the agent and interacting with self-service platforms. The second is the need to focus and drive compliance, not only to reduce errors and prevent repeat calls, but also to use bots themselves as almost a second pair of eyes, using attended automation to work in the background, validating information that the customer is sharing, as well as information that the agent is sharing themselves, obviously preventing the need to impact on downstream complaints, inaccuracies, and breach of compliance. So acting, as I say, as a safety net, as a second pair of eyes to ensure that accuracy is consistently and constantly maintained. We're still seeing in the contact center industry fragmentation between omni-channel across multiple channels. The challenge, of course, is how does an organization drive the same experience for customers across all of these channels without synergies or synchronization between them? And the opportunity here is to see automation as the glue, as the ability to orchestrate the end-to-end journey, being able to hand off seamlessly from self-serve and into served and into the back office, essentially orchestrating the end-to-end customer experience. The challenge of communicating promotions or the next best action is one that's been very common in the contact center industry for quite some time. And there's been many organizations who today and historically have been able to present the next best action or recommendation to an agent. But there is a significant build on that. And that build is to be able to provide more granular information, more rule-based. If a customer is in a certain segment, is in a certain point in their journey, present more quality or in-depth content. But together with that content, enable the agent to action that request. So using hybrid automation, not only push the next recommended action, but together with the trigger button or link to action that specific request, encouraging the need and encouraging the opportunity to present more content to customers throughout this entire end-to-end customer experience. We're still seeing legacy IVRs causing customer churn within the contact center. Here's an opportunity to use unattended automation to enhance and to drive deeper intelligence. So instead of a customer purely providing information, having two-way dialogue and using unattended automation to interact with all of the complex systems in the background to be able to update the customer in a self-serve capacity. Most of our customers, however, start their journey here. It's at the agent desktop, where we see an agent having to work across multiple interfaces, hundreds of data points, and spend the majority of their time toggling between each of those interfaces, and of course, having a significant impact on two key metrics. The first one is silent time. On average, we see a typical contact center with around 30% of their handling time is made up of silent time. And this is where an agent's seeking and finding and identifying that solution. And the second part, of course, is post-call processing. So in presenting custom information through a custom interface, we're able to accelerate an agent interaction, and we regularly see a reduction of average handling time by over 40% and improve first contact resolution by over 30%. And we hope to show you and give you examples of that shortly. Digital transformation is still full of risk in the contact center, but see an automation platform like UiPath as the ability to introduce disruptive AI decision-making or much more complex interactions into workflow without having to impact on the entire build of an organization's ecosystem. And the final point, and the very clear point here, is the realization of the benefits and the speed of build. So the entire nature of this product is to be able to build and design, build and implement in a matter of days rather than weeks, not months, and to be able to realize the benefit far, far sooner. So I also encourage any questions on any of this, and we will come to them at the end of the session. So what does that look like from a customer journey? What does an inbound call look like today, as we're all aware of? So without automating and prior to automating the particular journey, we see at the start of a call, the customer seeking help, and that's either through self-service, either through seeking particular information, and of course, then navigating through to an agent, where in the first few seconds of the call, an agent will answer that call, greet the customer, and typically ask that customer, who are they, and what type of information do we need to support them with. So search and seek and question, no preempting of that information, and very few opportunities to set the context on that point of the journey. Then the agent goes forth and identifies the problem, updates multiple systems, and answers and searches for that particular question and answer. And then at this stage, the call typically ends. The agent goes into a post-call or wrap-up phase, and then continues to write up those appropriate systems and requests. And in some cases, not all, may pass that to a back office department to complete that particular request or request or information. So what we're typically seeing is the life cycle of the call. The customer will remain on that call right the way through all of these particular interactions. And then, of course, there is an additional back office process. What we want to talk about today is what happens and how does that journey change if you were to automate the end-to-end customer journey. So let's look at the first phase again. Before the call even starts, using unattended automation to enhance self-service, unstructured email, chatbots, all of that interaction, as well as IVR, prior to the call arriving, you're able to drive some customer interaction enabled by automation, unattended bots in this scenario, to drive a very different outcome. Here we're able to then seamlessly feed that context and part of that journey into the agent, who is armed with the scenario where the customer is in their journey and information that has been pulled using attended automation from those multiple sources and presented to that agent in the form of an intelligent agent console. Then there is a mutually exclusive relationship between understanding the context and performing and driving the outcome. Bots are already in this scenario starting to fulfill these requests, starting to pull information not only from the agent's desktop, but also from unattended bots in the back office, which leads us on to our post-call update. We're typically seeing in this scenario the complete elimination of post-call processing, where bots have already, during the call, fulfilled each of the follow-up activities and tasks, inclusive of writing up verbatim and setting and selecting follow-up actions and activities. And the final point, and this is the real twist in the entire end-to-end model, is as we see a combination of unattended and attended bots, those bots unattended sitting at the system level and the attended bots sitting on the agent desktop, we're able to orchestrate that entire end-to-end journey. We have a number of examples where in real time, we're able to pull content from the back office and to be able to feed that into the customer journey. So for example, the customer may ask a question, we can fire that request off to a back office bot. That back office process can automatically generate the outcome and fulfill and provide that information back to the agent in real time. As an overall result of that, we're significantly reducing the average handling time of the end-to-end customer journey. So that's the entire ethos of being able to not only look at that central concept of attended automation in the contact center, but broaden that entire automation end-to-end. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ankit, who's going to give a little bit more insight in how our product is able to fulfill this particular capability. Ankit.
Thanks, you. So as you mentioned, right, when we think about driving transformation in the contact center, we essentially are looking at three pillars of outcomes. One is delivering exceptional experiences. This is all about focusing on improved experiences for your customers. How can you make them better? The second pillar we look at is enhancing agent value. How do you make your agent more productive as well as more have a more fulfilling job? And the third pillar is accelerate outcomes. As you mentioned, contact centers have a lot of challenges and they're continuously evolving and situations are evolving. So everything we focus on from a product perspective is about how can a contact center respond to challenges and changes quickly and get the outcomes quickly. To do this, we essentially bring our automation, our intelligence, and our insights capabilities to the table, which should result in an engaging, innovative, and delightful contact center. Let's look at the product roadmap next. Next slide. Thank you. So when we think about the product roadmap as well as the product portfolio, we look at it in the 4 buckets of self-service, which is about customer self-service and fulfillment, agent assistance, where this is about the customer service journey where an agent is helping the customer on a call or on a chat. Then the third phase is about after call tasks. This is the work typically agents do after they finish their call and before they get on to the next call. And the fourth bucket is the back office work, which is the work which happens in terms of back office fulfillment or pending work or queues which get built up over time. Let's look at each of this area one by one. So when we think about self-service, UiPath brings around the chatbot capabilities, which allows you to take your chatbots and connect them to any system you have, whether it's a legacy system on premises or it's a modern system. But UiPath robots can connect your chatbot to any systems and do much richer fulfillment than what chatbots can do today. Similarly, you can take your IVR systems, whether modern or legacy IVR systems, and use UiPath unattended robots to improve the IVR experience for your customers. You can personalize the IVR experience, even though it might be a legacy IVR experience, or you can even do fulfillment through your IVR via RPA. And lastly, if you have your help desk or portal systems, again, UiPath automation can be integrated into that to improve the capabilities of what your help desk or portal systems can do. Moving on to the next area of agent assistance. You briefly talked about it. One of the best things we bring to the table is a customizable agent console, wherein you can build specific experiences for your agents using UiPath capabilities and provide personalized to the context information to your agent. So instead of your agent going to 10 or 15 applications and getting all the information needed for a particular call time, they can go to a single experience and get everything, all the information in a single shot. Naturally, we have omni-channel engagement capabilities where we can take information from all your channels, whether that's chat, voice, SMS, or others, and pop them up in the agent console, as well as allow the agent to talk across all of those channels and integrate across all of those channels. And third, this is the place where assisted agent robots can be continuously helping agents as they are doing their work. Now coming to after call tasks. There are various capabilities available to do after call tasks as well. One of the ones I personally like, which is why it's listed on the top, is the automated process launch capabilities we have. You can have processes launch automatically based on actions or triggers on your system, which means I can have a process launch as soon as I finish my call. And then the process can go and do all the after call task needed, which can be about updating multiple system of records or copying data from one system to another, or queuing tasks for back office or automated work fulfillment. All of that can be done automatically without even the agent having to worry about it. And the other thing we have is a capability to put in-app buttons, automation buttons anywhere inside of your apps and your products, your existing apps and your existing products, which allows you to have in-context buttons for after-task fulfillment. Coming on to the last bucket of back office work. Back office work is where RPA originally started, and robotic process automation already started, and unattended robots from UiPath shine there. So whether it's about understanding a document and processing a document, or taking a code and generating a code, processing a code, sending it to a customer, or generating an invoice and sending it to a customer, unattended robots can do this job very well. Apart from that, one of the things UiPath brings to the table is the orchestration of human, robot, and AI tasks using our Action Center capability. This ability allows you to do end-to-end automation, which has some of the parts being done by a robot, maybe some of the parts being done by an AI bot, and maybe some of the parts being done by human. And all of these parts are orchestrated together and handed off seamlessly between each other, without any interruptions, and complete end-to-end workflow. The, all of this capabilities are lighted up based on on few end-to-end capabilities in our product portfolio. One is the orchestrator, which allows you to manage your entire digital workflows and of robots, as well as all the automations you have built. Second, we have the insights product, um, which can allow you to get insights on your robots, as well as everything in the processes. We also have AI capabilities for end-to-end, uh, sorry about that. We also have AI capabilities available from UiPath for document understanding, screen capture, and other capabilities. And we have the AI Fabric. So AI Fabric allows you to bring your AI models within the processes as and when needed. So you do not have to actually wait for somebody else to build your models. You can build a model, bring it within your process, whether it's needed in the self-service or agent assistant, or after call task, or after in the back office work. Your AI models can be brought in wherever you need. Moving on to the next item, uh, we have the Studio and Apps Designer, first-in-class tools to build your agent consoles as well as your processes. And last but not the least, we have task mining and process mining capabilities, which can allow you to identify tasks on an agent's desktop, or in fact, you can have processes, or you can identify end-to-end processes which can span multiple users, multiple front end, back ends, front office, back office, using our process mining capability. This all, I know this is a lot of things, but this end-to-end comprises of the entire UiPath product portfolio for contact center. I'll now like to call Hugh and Cheryl for the next section.
Thank you very much, Ankit. And I'm delighted to be able to introduce one of our customers who will today walk us through some of the challenges and opportunities that they were able to see in their contact center environment. Before I do, just wanted to set some scene. Fiserv have been utilizing and using RPA within their business for some time, and they're embarking and in the middle of driving that particular project within their contact center, which created some really interesting and very different opportunities. So I'd like to hand you over to Cheryl to give a brief introduction, and then we'll walk through some of the challenges and questions around how she was implementing this within her business. Cheryl.
Hi everyone. So as you said, I'm Cheryl Watson. I run the EMEA COE team for Fiserv. We are a third-party provider, for financial institutions. So we will do contact center work and go right through into other areas of the business, IT, security, but we mainly support all of our operational side of the business for contact center work.
Thank you, Cheryl. I think one of the first questions we have is, what problems were you experiencing? What led you to UiPath, and particularly in the contact center scenario?
Yeah, so as I've just mentioned, you'd mentioned, we started with our automation through attended bots, and it was providing great success, but we saw a bigger opportunity within our contact center to be able to deliver more benefits to the business. So we were looking at and scoping out the attended bot automation, and one of the areas that we started looking at had to interact with 8 different systems at different points. the call. Now, those 8 different systems were web-based, they were terminal services, they were applications on their desktops. So they had a lot of places to be going with, and we saw a huge opportunity within that team. They also had set scripting that they had to read and complete, and some of that was classed as legal requirements. So if they missed it, which happened quite often because it was on another page on their screen, it classed as a failure. So the request was to provide one interface to the agents to use, which was simple to use and included all their prescription requirements and made key decisions for them. So it stopped the call going down a path where we couldn't complete the transactions.
Perfect. That's great. It's great to hear, Cheryl. And how did you approach the business case? What were some of the metrics that you were looking to influence, and how did you identify them?
Yep. So firstly, we went round the whole of our operational contact centres, looking at all of the areas that we wanted to see where we could go. Once we'd identified that, we started looking at the different AHTs that we were receiving on calls. We then quickly engaged yourselves to see what automation solution there was available for the contact centre, and the solution was provided was a attended robot, which would either use the form builder and or the agent console. We were really fortunate that yourselves come onto site and worked really closely with me over a 3-day period to build an example of what could be achieved and help to identify the benefits and the soft benefits. So around that, it was reduction in talk time, rack time. And also when I talk about the soft benefits, I'm looking at improved quality scores, improved net score promoters for our clients. So this was then presented to our leadership team, who requested that we continue down the automation route from what they'd saw based on the 3 days worth of work that we did together.
Perfect. And why UiPath? What was unique about our product, or what was different about our product that enabled you to arrive at your intended solution?
So the reason for choosing UiPath was very simple for us. There was 3 main reasons. One was ease of developing the automation. I'd taken a developer who had only worked on the unattended side of the shop before, provided him with the discovery documentation, the desired outcome, and with the tools and the products that are there already in the studio and the form builder. It was really quick and simple for us to be able to automate the process. A second reason for us was the support provided from UiPath to create the base of the automation and providing the on-site support for the project to get off the ground. We obviously we're having code reviews, as this is our first attended automation within our company. So it was a real collaboration of efforts from both sides. And then lastly, which is the most important one for us, is the speed that we're creating this automation has been critical, and the UiPath solution provides that ability to be able to do the automation at speed while delivering a really high product standard.
Thank you. How is the implementation going? How do you measure your success, and what other areas what other outcomes are you looking to achieve?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. So what I want to do is just take us back a little bit. So we initially started the core conversations in November with the leadership team, and that's when we engaged with yourself to start doing the groundwork for what we could do. In December, we worked to identify a focus group, which included agents, seniors, and team managers. And that was a really important session that we done to create the interface and how that would look and feel. So we got their involvement and made sure that they told us what they wanted. Once this was completed, the task in hand was then to complete all the documentation for discovery for all of the modules required to provide the end-to-end solution. Now, we actually started that piece of work in January, and it was completed by the middle of February for 16 modules. And the development was completed as the modules were signed off. And we're currently in the UAT stage of testing, and the date that we're looking to get this implemented is by March. Now, how am I going to measure that success? I'm going to be looking at core items such as reduction of talk time, rat time. But in addition to this, we're looking for the quality score and customer feedback to increase, as the agents will be able to solely focus on the customer's needs instead of navigating around the systems, and they're concentrating on the customer. So there are 5 core measures that we're looking for.
That's perfect. Thank you very much, Cheryl, and thank you for sharing some of the. We're having quite a large amount of questions on the Q&A, so I please encourage these, and we'll have a session to answer a few more questions at the end of this, and spend a respectable amount of time on that. So please do continue in sharing those. There's some really interesting questions coming, and we'll have questions for both Cheryl and Ankit, and I'll also provide some inputs myself on that. But before we go to that Q&A, I just wanted to really talk about something which is probably in all of our minds at the moment, which is, how are organizations managing and handling, the catastrophic impact that the COVID-19 virus outbreak is having on our industry. And there are wide reports across media of large scale contact centers either being evacuated or organizations literally being inundated with inbound inquiries. So very quickly wanted to just spend just a couple of minutes on sharing some of our stories from the industry, and to give some thought for all of not only our customers, but those operating contact centers, and how they can potentially use automation to help them and support them in that particular area. So how are UiPath helping contact centers during this particular outbreak? I just want to very quickly give one slide, one view on this, and then we can obviously, if needed, go to talk more about any of these topics in the Q&A. So what are some of the how are organizations adapting to this particular scenario? I mean, it's fairly obvious, but we're seeing large organizations having to adapt their business models considerably, having to pull in non-skilled staff, and essentially have every hand available to support inbound customer inquiries, using temporary workers, and also reorganizing teams within their contact centers for focused triage or managing specific impacts. We're also seeing a large amount of the population, contact center population, working from home, having to access systems remotely, non-skilled staff again in non-familiar environments, and similarly security and data issues with the inability in some cases to be able to access certain data sources because of compliance and governance in each country. And the third is recognizing there are new business demands. We're seeing obviously a need to focus on vulnerable customers, to prioritize certain workloads and workflows, as well as organizations offering temporary services or interim services themselves, as well as additional products. So what does automation, how can automation support this? And the first one is around simplifying the agent interface. We're seeing a number of examples where organizations are adapting their business model to have focused teams or focused individuals just purely looking at one particular call type, for example. And obviously removing the need in that case to train those individuals on those systems. In these scenarios that we're seeing, there are many customers who are focusing on training the bot to perform a particular task or activity, and providing an agent, either trained or untrained agent, with essentially a script and triggers to action that particular scenario. What that also does is ensure rigor and compliance and adherence to that process, and removing the risk of providing access to systems to unskilled or untrained individuals. Similarly, enhancing the self-service, and we talked about this from a strategic perspective earlier, which is how you can automate or add further automation to things like unstructured emails. We're using a combination of OCR and automation, able to read and screen emails, automatically respond, but also fulfill the task or activity with an attended bot running in the background. Transactional portals, so instead of portals receiving information from customers, having two-way interaction, updating customers with a status, or allowing them to rebook an appointment or perform a particular task or activity. And similarly, chatbots and SMS automated responses with content that has been pulled from back-end systems or multiple sources. And the final point is around automating IVR. So when customers are interacting with those traditional self-serve platforms, that it adds some intelligence to each of those. And what are the case studies? What are the use cases that we're seeing across each of these individual areas? So again, in using a simplified agent interface, creating teams of log and parse and triage. So instead of those triage or log and parse teams filling out a paper-based form and putting that on a pile and passing that to a back office team, a intelligent form can now update multiple systems and interact with those multiple systems. Similarly, provide customers with updates. So customer, for example, may want to know, am I eligible for something? Am I entitled to? So being able to answer those one question, one answer interactions, and non-skilled temporary workers or focus teams can quickly, without having to access those multiple systems, perform that task. Similarly, scheduling customer events and activities. We're seeing a huge amount of things like rescheduling and cancellations in the industry today, processing orders and fulfillment, as well as solving and reporting for faults and fixes and diagnosis. But processing payments and refunds are one of the fastest growing areas. We're seeing large amount of customers who are requiring support, reassurance of things like credit lines and extending overdrafts, and functional areas around payment processing and fulfillment, as well as more simple interactions such as receiving and sharing updates and checking inventory and availability. And why I wanted to share that is to really just share what we're seeing in the industry, the types of challenges that our customers are experiencing, and how automation can play a part in supporting our customers with this particular very, very turbulent situation. I want to turn to Q&A, and thank you for sharing the questions that you have so far. So I just want to continue and encourage that. Just a couple of hygiene questions. Essentially, we will be sharing the recording at the end of this. We will be sharing the answers to the Q&A and the recording at the end of the session. We will also be answering all of the questions that you do share, so either during this call or post it. So I do encourage you to continue to share those. But I'll just start off with one, and Cheryl, one for you, which is around speed. And you pointed earlier around the speed of build. So I think the first question is, how quickly does this take to build? And how were you able to accelerate the build?
So this has taken us 8 weeks from start to finish. So that was including the discovery right through to the development and getting that into UAT. The way we were able to speed up that delivery is by working with yourselves and getting some really good information and some tools from the systems that were there. And the second one was we were working parallel with doing our discovery documentation, getting that signed off and passing that through to the developer. So we didn't wait for the whole end-to-end process to be documented, because we knew we were going to be splitting this up into modules. We've been able to work parallel with the two streams.
Thank you. Second question, how did your agents or staff respond? And did you collaborate with them on the design?
So this has been, for me, one of the most important elements that we've done to deliver this. So yes, we absolutely did bring in the staff around how we were going to do this. So we identified a core group that become our focus group that had been involved since the start with discovery right through to development into the UAT testing. They got to draw out their picture of how they'd like it to look and designed that for us. They've then been the ones out there championing the interface for us, talking to their colleagues about it. So we've been able to take the scariness out of saying we're giving you an attended bot out by having the guys involved in the process. We've also done some items with the whole of the team around designing a logo for the attended bot, coming up with a name for the attended bot. So we've brought them right all on the journey with us, so that they know what's happening. And the feedback when we've been delivering training to the wider audience is they're all really excited and how much easier we're making their lives.
Fantastic. And I'm assuming that they were able to contribute to the design in that case and to influence how they were using it?
Yeah, so they actually done a drawing with us right at the start and told us exactly how they wanted it to look and feel. They were involved in getting all of the discovery documentation onto paper with us, ensuring that we were getting all the right requirements. As we were building out the code and the form builder, they were seeing it and they were giving us suggestions and feedback, and we were taking those on board and making changes to it. And then they've been doing the UAT testing, so they're in there for us now, taking calls and doing UAT testing and providing all the feedback. So they have been involved in every step of the process with me. So they've come on the journey, and that's what, for me, one of the key successes of this process.
Perfect, thank you very much. I have a question for Ankit. How can you connect to legacy or IVR systems like Avaya, Mitel, or unsupported systems like Nortel, as well as to newer cloud-based platforms? Do the data dips need to make an interactive IVR?
Hey, Hugh, yeah, I saw that question as well. Yes. So I talked about it briefly in the product roadmap and the product portfolio slide. This can be done via UiPath unattended robots. So your existing legacy systems, IVR systems, can call into UiPath robot, which then can go into whatever systems needed to do the data dips, to do updates, to fetch information, or whatever scenario you're trying to automate via the IVR. That can be done through the unattended robot connected to your IVR system. There are a couple of more IVR questions. Let me just take them in a single go so we can
Thank you.
do that. The next question is, when is the IVR capability coming? The ability to connect any IVR system to UiPath exists even today because we have a very open API system. Our APIs are very well documented. The orchestrator APIs are documented. We are doing work to provide some out-of-box integrations, which will be coming later this year. I see one more question about, do our call robot solutions require the calls to be recorded? Not really. Depends on the scenario you're trying to do. If the scenario is a simple one where an IVR is triggering a robot, or a chatbot is triggering a robot, we do not require the call to be recorded. Or if an agent is, if the robot is getting triggered when the agent is assisting the customer or post call, again the call need not be recorded. But if there are scenarios where you want to do, I do see there's a question like this. Oh, do we have anything around bad word detection or provide for both chats as well as recorded calls? So UiPath does not have this as an in-house capability, but we have partnered with few partners to provide ability to make sense of the call sentiment as well as call analysis. So in those scenarios, yes, naturally the calls would have to be recorded for the call sentiment and call analysis to work. The next question, I'm actually going to send it to Cheryl. Cheryl, there's a question. There are two questions for you, actually. One is a quick one, which is you said it took you 8 weeks for development. So how many developers were active for those 8 weeks? And the second question is, how did you go about testing the implementation?
So in answer to the first question, I have 2 developers working on this. And we had one main developer that has built all the base out, and then the second developer was there supporting, going off and doing some of the smaller bits for the main developer, and took control of the UAT testing. So how have we been able to do that? We've been able to access UAT environments to do testing through there. So we have mapped out every scenario that a call can go down. So we had 3 different processes that we've built within that 8 weeks. And we have all of the successful path, and then we have the path where we're not able to complete. So we mapped all of those processes out and we worked through. So the first phase was looking at, was the information being pulled correctly and typing correctly back into the system. And then the second phase was doing some test calls into the UAT systems. And then finally, the last stage that we're just going through at the moment is live proof testing in the production systems, just to ensure that everything's working in exactly the same way.
Thank you, Cheryl. Actually, there are a couple more questions for you. The first one is around what access did you have to training and what support did you have? And maybe let's go with that one and then I'll ask the next question.
So from a training point of view, are you talking, so I'll go 2 ways. So we have obviously the training within the system, which was all there from a UiPath point of view. So we did have some support from UiPath initially to get us started, but the developer was able to go off and look at the information that's available for UiPath to be able to build and make the most of his development. And then if you're looking at to implement this, what we did was we created a training module so that we was able to get all of our agents into the training module and let them play and train on it. So they were able to do some live UA test calls and get a feel of the environment.
Thank you, Cheryl. One more question for you, which is, how did you create governance around adopting bots in production? How did you manage risks on downstream processes like missed requirements on exception management?
Okay, so yes, we have a lot of governance around putting bots into the production environment, and we just worked very closely with our IT and global privacy officers to be able to ensure that we met all of their requirements. And in regards to missed requirements, we spent a lot of time within the discovery going through everything. And my favourite question to all of the SMEs that were working with us was, but what if? And we done a lot of time spending going through the scenarios and them going to me, but that never happens. But we made them get the process for if it did happen. But you don't always get everything when you're doing your discovery. And the way we've dealt with that is by going through and having a really tight test plan that has enabled us to take the calls and see exactly what's happening to ensure that we've tested every avenue that we can go down. And then when we've caught something that's missed, we've looked at it, whether it was critical or if it was just a nice to have. If it was critical, we've documented and put that into the process. If it's a nice to have, it's gone on a list for us to deploy in the second phase.
Thanks, Cheryl. The next question actually, Hugh, is for you. Have you considered this also as internal benefits like IT service desk? I think the question is essentially around, have you seen use cases in IT service desks?
Yeah, absolutely. So the model, although we use the term contact center, that's essentially an umbrella term for any industrialized business to business, business to consumer, or even business to employee interaction center. So absolutely the same concept applies. We are seeing a number of examples across all of those industries, particularly not only with IT help desks or IT service desks, but right the way across all types of help desks and customer interaction centers, as well as for business to consumer contact center industrialized environments.
Thanks, you. I'm going to take the next set of questions then. So the next question we had was, Can the agent console also allow the agent to browse Google on the same screen? Yes, definitely. The agent console can be designed to whatever aspect ratios you need. So that's one of the advantages and flexibility of UiPath overall, which is that you can design your experiences as you want. You want them to be full screen, you can make them full screen. If you want them to be a side panel, you can make them a side panel. You want them to be a smaller window, you can make it a smaller window based on the requirements. And then at the same time, you can have the majority of the desktop available for the agent to do what they need to do as they need to do. Another product question, would the task mining capability support identification of differences in how individual agents are operating on the same process? Would this help understand how the same process is being operated differently by different agents? Yes, definitely. Task mining allows you to identify that. You can run task mining on different agents desktop simultaneously, and typically a contact center is very repetitive in nature, so even if you run it in like 10 to 15 agents, that's a lot of data you'll get over two to 3 days. And you can then identify how each agent is doing the same set of tasks, and it can show you the differences between how different agents are doing, and then based on the agents training and experience level, you can figure out which is the right balance of the tasks and processes that should be done. The next question, are you able to estimate or even specify exact, are you already able to estimate or even specify exactly the ROI? I think this must have been for Cheryl.
Yep.
Got you.
I was going to suggest, just very quickly, Cheryl, if you are able to answer that question around the ROI, that would be very interesting, I think, to learn. But just typically speaking, we see on average in the contact center space are ROI driven between 8 and 16 weeks. What's really relevant to that is the types of metrics that we typically see customers analyzing, and that's purely, in that case, the reduction of average handling time. It's quite clear that AHT is really the foundation layer here, and what we are able to see and influence is with some of the new functionality, much more than that, and much deeper value, and not only AHT reduction, but also improved first contact resolution, and in many cases, the ability to drive revenue through positioning more product related and more relevant information to an agent in real time, and allowing them, of course, to trigger that. But that's a general overall response that we're seeing with our customers. But Cheryl, I'm keen to see, are you able to estimate or specify the ROI in your project today?
So at the moment, we're targeting a 20% reduction attached to the AHT. And we're also looking to see all quality scores increase. So that's what I can share at the moment.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'll take the next question about, there are a couple of questions about AI activities. I'll take them. Are other AI activities available except computer vision? Yes, we have AI activities for document understanding available. We have the AI fabric already available in preview. So if you go to insider.uipath.com, sign up, and you can try those on preview. There's one question about licensing of OCR. Sorry, I am not 100% aware of the licensing details. Yeah, please check on the website or reach out to your account manager on that one. There are a couple of questions again on IVR, which is Boris is asking if RPA can be used to integrate IVR to some legacy backend systems. Yes, Boris, RPA can be used to do that. We talked about that earlier as well, which is IVR systems can trigger unattended robots, which can then integrate into backend systems as and when needed. Customers have done this across multiple IVR systems already. Then there are a couple of questions around simultaneous calls. Sorry, you.
No, please go ahead.
Okay. There are a couple of questions around a couple of simultaneous calls. How does the entire contact center automation plays out. So it's essentially, it's a very good question, Arif. So the first thing first, multiple agents taking multiple calls, so the robots don't. So because the robots are running on each individual's machines, they do not interact with each. The robots don't mess with each other. They are independently running on each machine. So they are helping a single agent at a single time, right? In terms of how does the entire automation flows out, it essentially depends on what processes are being automated, right? So if you have an end-to-end process for a single call, which may require you to trigger 2 or 3 different processes, you build them as such, as 2 or 3 different processes. And then based on the processes, how they are built, one of them would trigger. We support background processes in attended automation, so it can go into background and do the remaining work in background, while the next set of processes can get triggered based on the triggers which have been set up. It actually all depends on the end-to-end and of what you are trying to automate and what your business process looks like. Hugh, do you want to take any other questions? I think I did take.
Just a question for Cheryl around, in your case, are the robots attended or unattended?
So for this automation, it's attended robots. For the next deployment that we're looking to do, it will be a mixture of the two.
Perfect. And one further question, where do you go next? What's your growth?
So we have a lot of opportunity within the contact centre. So this is the first phase for us of launching where we are with the attended bots, and then we will move very quickly into the other front office areas, but we will look to incorporate the use of attended and unattended bots into that front office piece, to try and avoid some of the handoffs into the back office area and generating further work downstream to them. And the next step after that will be then to have what we class as a super user, so one agent that can do any call that comes into them by offering them this application.
Perfect. As we draw to a close, I just wanted to thank, of course, Cheryl, for your time. We're delighted again to have you to be able to share the time and certainly be able to share your story with all of our attendees today. Please, if there are any further questions, we are very eager to continue to answer these. Please do to either contact via your contact within your existing sales rep or via the UiPath website, and we will be able to continue the discussion specifically around this and any other topic. I thank everybody again for attending at this very difficult time. I wish you all well and a happy and healthy time, and thank you all for attending today.